This little guy is the DJI Action 4. Should you still be considering it in 2025, or should you just buy the Action 5 Pro instead? I recently took the Osmo Action 4 to Turkey, and if you want to download the files and just play around with them, I'll leave them in the description below. First, let's talk price of the Action 4. Right now, it is a Black Friday deal, and it's $209 US, or if you want to buy it with the selfie stick and extra batteries, it's $309 for the adventure combo. Now, if you wanted to buy the Action 5 Pro, at the time of recording this video, it's $349 for just the camera, or $449 for the adventure combo. A lot of people are talking about how this camera really isn't that good for low light performance, and I got to test it in some caves in Turkey, so that was a lot of fun. It does have like a low light enhancement mode on the Action 4, but because of that smaller sensor than say something like the Pocket 3, you unfortunately do struggle a little bit in low light with this, and you do get some noisy images. Make sure that if you are using this in low light scenarios, you definitely turn on that enhancement low light mode. In terms of the low light performance for the Action 5 Pro, unfortunately, because it's the same sensor size as the Action 4, you're not getting like leaps and bounds better low light performance. They do have a different night mode, but unfortunately the results that I've seen aren't that much better. Before we get into the video samples from this camera, I just want to say that I try and make every camera kind of look cinematic. It's just something I like to do to really test the performance limitations of all these cheap little cameras. So I'll give you my best cinematic settings for this Action 4. If you're finding value in this video, it goes a really long way if you could just leave a like. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, and let's dive back in. From the main screen, all you got to do is click the settings bar on the right, and then you can toggle between Pro and normal mode. Once you're in Pro mode, you can go to your exposure settings. This allows you to set your shutter speed, which is really nice, and also lower your ISO for a nice clean image. You also want to make sure that you're using this with ND filters, and I got a kit before going to Turkey. Also, in terms of white balance, you can click that, and you're going to want to make sure that this is consistent with the environment that you're shooting in. So if it's daylight, say 5500, will definitely do the trick. In terms of color mode, yes, you get normal mode in 10-bit color, but what I like to do is shoot in D-Log-M, and this gives me the best dynamic range, which is super cool. And then field of view, that's up to you. If you go ultra wide, that's not super cinematic, but I like the standard D-Warp for most cases. And then you're kind of sitting pretty. What I like to do then is I go to the bottom screen, I click there, and I go to 4K 24 frames per second. And again, make sure that in your Pro mode, your shutter speed is set to double that, so 1/50. In terms of EV, you see it in the top left corner there, and you're going to make sure you're monitoring at about 0.0, and this will ensure that you get the best flexibility and nicest image in post. So because we shot in 10-bit D-Log-M, we now have the most flexibility to play with our colors in post. So let's see what it looks like with 10 different LUTs. After editing the video from the Action 4, I was super impressed with the colors and dynamic range that it was able to produce, and I was also super stoked that the colors just didn't fall apart when I added LUTs. If you are looking to make your footage look a little bit more cinematic with LUTs, the 10 that you just saw come from today's channel sponsor, Artlist. When you do hear the name Artlist, you probably think music and sound effects, but there's so much more than that, and they've just added over 300 LUTs to their catalog. Once you get to their website, all you got to do is use their filter settings to kind of figure out the style that you typically like. You can try it on various types of footage to see firsthand what it kind of looks like. And then once you find one, you simply download it and use it in your editing software. Once again, Artlist is so much more than just music and sound effects. They have like a new voiceover option, which is super cool.
Maddie just wants to thank you again for being here.
They have plugins for your editor, and now with LUTs, it really is the one-stop shop for all creators. To get 2 extra months when you subscribe to any annual plan, all you got to do is click the link in my description. Thank you so much, Artlist, for sponsoring the video, and let's get back into it. So after looking at the footage from my trip, I was super impressed with the 4K image that comes out of this. The Action 4 shoots all the way up to 120 frames per second, so we're going to test 60 frames and 120 frames right now. Another thing I really like about this camera is it does have custom modes, so I can set my 4K 24 and 4K 60 with proper shutter speed, so I'm not always fumbling around with the menu, and I can get nice cinematic settings with just the press of a button. Now let's talk audio out of the Action 4, and I find that for a small compact camera like this, they've done such a good job of just using the internal mic.
Check Eso, bien.
How was it, Mom?
Awesome.
Yeah, good first experience.
Great first experience.
Would you do it again?
I'm going again.
Also, they have a dream. They want to buy Lamborghini. If you would like to support for Lamborghini, you can leave some tip for my grand crew. Thank you, Faiza.
And it's very, very usable if you're vlogging or anything like that. However, if you do want to go from like far away from the camera and Bluetooth connect the DJI Mic 2, and now they have the DJI mini mic, which is actually really cool, you can now do that, and it's pretty seamless. If you're not finding the option to Bluetooth pair your DJI mic, it's probably because you haven't updated your firmware in a while, so just go ahead and do that and you'll see it in the menu. I'm definitely loving this camera, and I've recently sold my Hero 7 and 8. I was super outdated when it came to action cameras, but I'm loving what this thing is capable of, especially that it is waterproof and dust proof and all this, and I can just kind of throw it around. I also have the Osmo Pocket 3. That thing is a little bit more fragile, definitely with like that mechanical gimbal, and it's not waterproof, so this definitely serves a different purpose for me. In terms of stabilization, this thing is actually really good. No, it doesn't have that mechanical gimbal like the Pocket 3 does, but it does have some rock steady modes that are really good. I simply used a chest mount walking through the streets of Istanbul in Turkey, and I found that even though the mount was kind of like jiggling up and down, this thing did a really good job of just keeping a nice smooth image. The last two things I want to talk about is that this thing has a USB plug-in, which you could just use a portable charger to plug in your bag. So if you're a little strapped for cash and you can't afford the extra batteries and that pull for the adventure combo, I would say that $209 US is a really good price for this. And lastly, DJI's app support is unmatched. I really like DJI Mimo, where you can put the camera somewhere and then fully control it just from your phone. Oftentimes apps are buggy, but I find for DJI's case, they keep it up to date, and it does a really good job of monitoring your camera and then just using it remotely. So should you be picking up the Action 4, or should you spend a little extra money for the Action 5 Pro? For me, I think you can stay a version behind. These cameras are super similar, and if the Action 5 Pro would have added a bigger sensor to the body, I actually think that would have been a more meaningful update. But unfortunately, it's not that much better in low light. The quality of 4K is just really hard to tell the difference, so I think you should just save the money. You do have better battery life with the Action 5 Pro, but those batteries do fit in the Action 4 Pro, so if you buy just like the base model of this, you can pick up the Action 5 Pro batteries and just put them in here for a longer capacity. I will say one neat feature that the Action 5 Pro added was subject tracking, so essentially the camera stays stable, you move around, and then it looks like someone handheld is following you, but other than that, like, that's just not worth the upgrade to me. I'll link Tamara Gabriel's video on the Action 4 versus the 5 Pro because I got so much information from that, and I think she's a great creator. So if you're still on the fence, go check out her video. Thanks so much for stopping by. We'll see you in the next video. Maddie out. Peace.